On November 1st, 2022, I decided to become the best version of myself through self-discipline. There were many problems in my life that caused a lot of stress. I didn't know how to remove the stress, so I started doing things that could somehow calm it down. I had big problem with watching 18 plus content and video games, which was impossible to get rid of at once like any other addiction. But I had great persistence and desire to live differently, because this thing led to the very bottom of my life. After about half a year of persistent struggle, I was completely freed from these things. But other problems appeared and remained. I couldn't manage my diet, I couldn't manage my sleep, I was distracted a lot. But the only thing I was doing well was athletically, and these problems took a lot of energy. I was always tired, it was difficult to do anything. There was a completely reluctance to strive for anything, but nevertheless, I still did something. Countless items to fix all this have led to failure. All this got me. I couldn't live with it. I always wanted to get something big and large scale from my life. So having already undergone a good physical transformation, I decided to start developing my self-discipline every day. And after that, I got the idea to develop this idea in public, where I created a Telegram channel CD365. Immediately I wrote down the points with which I have a problem and how I'm going to develop this on a daily basis. And after November 1st, I started. So it's first day, I wrote everything what I need, but I know what to expect. Discomfort. My plan consists of gradual changes and a minimum start, in order to go with the way that was possible for me and grow to the result I needed. At this time I was already familiar with getting up early, but there was no consistency in anything other than training. I began to gradually adjust my sleep, go to bed and get up at the same time, although Saturday and Sunday were a recovery from early rises, but with bedtime always at 7:30 p.m. I also followed sleep hygiene, slept in the dark and dimmed the light from gadgets, did not eat 2 hours before bed, slept in silence and ventilated the room. I began to gradually remove and replace food that made me feel ill. From all confectionery and chocolates, I switched to tea with honey and slow carbohydrates. But failure also happened constantly, especially at the beginning. But it was easier to move on, since I began to try to learn from each failure. What were my mistakes and how not to repeat them further. Failure again. I was a little late for bed by 30 minutes, and I ate chocolate. I don't know, I tried to control it, but for some reason I couldn't. And it's day 20. I will try to do my best. Anyways, at the beginning there were big disruptions with nutrition, because sometimes something tasty caught my eyes and what wasn't not yet listed in the list of products that I exclude. So I deceived myself that these products were not on the list, which means they will not harm, but they did, and then I added more and more details to my list. The list gave me an understanding of what I could and what I should forget. The failures were especially strong in constantly going to bed on time, as various situations occurred. Mainly it was due to trips home from the city, when you don't have time to do some things on the road. After 50 days, I found a great key to good nutrition. I created beliefs in my head that what you eat directly affects the functioning of your body. If you eat bad food, the body works poorly. If you eat good food, the body works great and recovers too. Which is very important for me, because I want to train and run a lot. And if I don't eat right, I won't get far. Day by day I managed to remove and forget about harmful products, because I took on a possible load for myself and not all at once, and worked on the following obstacles. Although I was consistent with sleep, since I often took off extra workload, I had to add sleep and sometimes go to bed at the wrong time. There were no problems with not being lazy and completing all the tasks assigned for the day, since I immediately understood the trick. The main thing is to decide on something minimally, and when you start, it's easier to complete the task. But I was also confused by the situation. Why did it become so difficult to start doing something? And I realized that the problem was that there were things that took a lot of energy from me, such as studying, not completely eliminating empty calories, and the uncertainty of where to start first. Therefore, I also began to study what affects the energy level more and what takes it away. And after studying, I began to fuel myself with slow carbohydrates, which gave a lot of energy in long term. I started eating enough carbohydrates and my energy is now at its highest level. I started writing definitely what I needed to do. I clearly wrote that today I just write the script, tomorrow I just shoot the footage, and only after tomorrow I start editing. Rather than try to do everything together in one day. I found the trick to do little by little everywhere. Take possible steps, and everything began to grow very much. After 100 days, life began to be very close to what I dream of. Things were getting better with sleep. I was completely determined with nutrition and already knew what food I eat and what not. I figured out my energy so much, so that I can do a lot without any fatigue. But there were still shortcomings that needed to be corrected. If I don't have time, I do the minimum. If it's difficult, I start with the minimum. And if I'm sick, I do the minimum. And that way you create a consistency, which means self-discipline. Having passed 200-day mark, constancy had already been built so strongly, so I forgot about controlling nutrition. Temptation ceased to exist in my life. I no longer wanted to eat the food that I was avoiding. I can't eat this anymore, and I don't want. I started getting up at the same time every day. It became quite easy to maintain constancy in sleep, and it wasn't difficult to get up. From all these achievements, I became very happy. Life has become so cool because everything you said for yourself, you do. But self-control doesn't give happiness. Happiness is a choice, but only by controlling yourself you can choose happiness. Of course, even after 250 days, there were failures that dragged along for several days. Sometimes there was a rebuilding to a new situation, where due to its sudden change, it was also unrealistic to adapt to it sharply. But the biggest method that I always did, but I didn't realize, is that in any situation where you cannot do something necessarily, you can always do the bare minimum. I arrived late, so I don't have time right now to do a full training, but I'll do the minimum. And with these daily steps, I reached 365 days of self-discipline. In 1 year, only 13 days where I failed in 2 out of 4 things set, 89 days of failure, only 1 of 4 things, and 263 days completely completed. Or as I say, green. Of course, for ultra loads, I followed a different prescribed schedule, which included the bare minimum. Tomorrow I'm running 200 kilometers and therefore I'm switching to different sleep and nutrition schedule. Now I can say I have completely begun to live the way I dreamed of living. New failures will appear, but of course, they will only help you become even stronger and better. So from the initial level where I could not control my diet, often could not wake up at the same time, and I learned to wake up and sleep at the right time every day, eat consistently healthy, learn to control my energy level and eliminate fatigue, and develop great consistency in all of these areas. The biggest lesson I learned from 365 days of improving self-discipline: 1. You always need to start with what is possible for you, from the smallest. 2. It is better to do a minimum, but every day, than a lot, but not all the time. I mean, if you should run 10k, but you can't, run 3k, or if you can't at all, run 1k. Even 100 meters will develop consistency. 3. There is always time. Excuses are only a loss of meaning, or fatigue, or stress. 4. Nothing will work out until it makes sense. 5. It's better to fail at the work than at sleep. 6. There will be no ideal, but there will be a maximum. And 7. Self-discipline, first of all, energy, and secondly, your choice toward independence. I was also surrounded by people who swore, drank, and especially smoked and vaped, and they still exist. But I always wonder if I was able to choose, in this case, what I want to do, despite what everyone does and everyone shows. Perhaps is it possible to not have a bad environment influence you? And as it turned out, yes, and also yes. People can only demonstrate something, and then it's our choice to do the same or not, depending on whether we consider it's normal or not. And this norm is created by your selective environment, the people you get inspired. It's the same in self-discipline. I must choose what will only make me better if I respect and value myself in my life.